Hey, it's Samantha with the Rediscover Real podcast. I am so thrilled to be here with you. Are you feeling overwhelmed, confused, or stuck on a hamster wheel from constantly seeking external tools, validation, and buffering in a search for more joy and fulfillment? Rediscover Real means to pull back the curtain and return to the foundation, peeling away the layers of mindsets, identities, and beliefs that no longer serve us. As we choose to grow, move forward, and show up fully as God intended, because at our very core, inside of you, lies everything already, as God created you absolutely perfect. We get to uncover and rediscover what's inside of us, and then to expand into what we're capable of. In this space, we'll dive into topics on personal finance and budgeting, mindset and growth, relationships, network marketing, and entrepreneurship. I'm sure there'll be some laughter and possibly a few tears along the way. I'm on this journey, and you're invited. I'm holding out my hand for you. Will you join me? Let's rediscover real together. Kindergarten to grade 12, and I even spoke and presented to my own personal finance class while in college. Today, I am celebrating 10 years of presenting budgeting and personal finance in schools, and so this is kind of going to be a reflective episode. Now, full disclosure, I actually recorded this episode once already and kind of reflected on some things that actually pulled out some not fun things that I have noticed and found in schools and experiences that I've walked through with teachers specifically and situations. And maybe someday there'll be a right time to share that. But my purpose of this is not to throw anyone under the bus or to bash anyone in any way, shape, or form. And in reflecting, my purpose, I guess, of reflecting is to share the growth and, again, like the things that I have learned and have shifted in with my money mindset and with my budgeting and personal finance and those pieces just from teaching. It doesn't need to be a Bachelor episode of like Bachelor Tells All or whatever, whatever those episodes are, I don't really know. But what I will say is what's been really interesting. So going into schools, as many different classrooms as I have. So I've spoke from mostly central Alberta, but I've also spoke for other schools throughout Alberta. And in all different grades, all different classrooms, all different teachers. And seeing how influenced the kids are by their teachers, their peers, the whole learning environment in the classroom and in the school. Not all schools are created equal. Not all teachers have the same heart for kids whatsoever. And if I ever end up having kids and putting them in school, I will be very, very, very careful about what that looks like, especially for the younger kids. And I mean, the older kids as well, but I mean, being able to help them navigate those situations while also being in them, I think is important, right? But the kids can do that as they, to some degree, as they get older. But when they're the younger grades, they don't understand all that's going on. They just kind of become sheep, right? Like a school of fish. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to leave that at that, because I think that I don't know how much reflecting on some of my experiences is beneficial. Yeah. So, personal shifts. Let's talk about them. So, 10 years of presenting. I can guarantee that I have shifted as a presenter, even though it doesn't necessarily feel like it a whole lot for me. In terms of presenting and speaking and those things. Now, when I first started, we primarily spoke to comm classes, which is like grades 9, 10, 11 usually. And so it was a really heavy, like it was a really full presentation. And then we expanded into all the other grades as well, which is wonderful. Being able to go into a kindergarten class at 9:30 and a comm class, you know, an hour later with, you know, a grade 3 or grade 4 class in the middle of that is really, it really has been a growth experience, because I have learned to read rooms and people very, very quickly. And I'd say that's a skill actually that I've actually probably developed more than I realize. And thanks to doing the presentations specifically. And because no classroom is the same whatsoever, right? And we know that. But also, like, I guess living that out and being like, okay, I need to execute this presentation. But in order to execute this presentation, I'm not just mailing it in. My goal is to connect with the kids. And in order to connect with the kids, they need to have some sort of like, no trust factor with me, and want to listen to me and want to engage with me. I'm not just trying to like be like the Muppets, like teacher lady in the background that's, you know, mwah, 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 whatever, like that. I'm not just trying to, you know, just check the box. Well, I showed up for the kids. I don't care if they listen or not. I care. And so connecting with each of those levels and meeting the kids where they're at for that day and in that moment is, yeah, a skill, I'd say. And I by no means hit the nail on the head, I don't think, every time, but it's really fun and really cool to do. It's also very draining. Reading, I mean, it's, you know, you talk about meeting someone new and picking up on their body language and their cues and facial expressions and all those things. You walk into a classroom with like 30 some kids in it, plus a teacher, sometimes an EA, usually a couple of kids who, you know, are at a different level. And then there's other kids that are at a different level, and you have, you know, a couple of kids that are struggling for the day. And I've been in classrooms where I've been in all the classrooms, from like kind of more that like very kind of, I don't want to say first class, but like kind of that more that like white collar, you know, I want to say higher end kind of classroom, down to like regular real life classrooms, I want to say, but ones where, you know, there's kids that, you know, they're eating in the middle of the class, and when you ask the teacher like what's going on, or like what do I do with that, they're like, oh, well, this is the only time the kid gets food. They don't have food at home, and so this is where they eat. And so like, yeah, I have dealt with all of it. And it's really presented. So you're constantly like, okay, like what's going on? Where are the kids at? And also where are the teachers at? Because this is what I said I wasn't going to get into a whole lot, and I won't. But I honestly am shocked at how many teachers aren't friendly or receptive to me, even though they're the ones who book me. And not just to me, but to having someone else come in and teach their quote unquote kids. And even when they're the ones that like signed up for the presentation and booked it and whatever, there's no obligation to have me in. But then I come in and there's almost this like intimidation factor that comes up, and scarcity, feeling not good enough. I don't know. But there's almost kind of this like, oh, well, like kind of standoffish, and it's shocked me. Anyways, and it happens often, but we're going to leave that. So that's been really, really interesting. And probably one of the biggest skills that I've picked up on is learning how to be really perceptive for what's going on for a kid. Because there's times where sometimes in some of the presentations, I'll want to push a little bit more to have the kids, like, hey, no, you actually need to like finish this, or, like work out the math problem for, a couple of the classes, even though they're basic or whatever, or push the kids a little bit more to find an answer. And so being able to know which kids that it's okay if you challenge them a little bit, and just how to approach them, like approaching them with humor, approaching them with like, softness, or like, I don't want to say kindness because that's everybody, but like, yeah, with more softness, or, kind of that, like, I'm dealing with, lots of girls and boys, like there's the mix too, right? And so that shift of like, which boys are, the sports boys, or, you have like, usually a couple kids, depending on the grades, they're wearing cowboy boots. And so trying to connect with all those different, like, the girly girls, and, who talk, that are talking Barbies, or, makeup or whatever. The whole, all of it, right? And that's without like, not to mention like the schools that I've been in that, like Catholic schools or Christian schools or private schools, where you're dealing with lots of like, there's all sorts, then you add kind of different dimensions, and whether they come from like really huge families, or they're, like very, very, I don't want to say conservative, but they're very, devout, religious, you can tell that is where that kid is viewing things from, and all those different viewpoints. And so learning how to approach kids, and also, but I mean, also, I'm not their teacher. I'm not a substitute. I'm not any of that. And so just coming in to, my goal is always to connect with the kids and to provide information, right? And teach the kids on a topic, hopefully something that they'll grasp. And I mean, we know that kids learn especially by doing, and through play and through fun, right? And so trying to keep it fun and upbeat, not that like the Peanuts teacher, right? And to leave the kids feeling like money is a good topic and a safe topic. And, because who knows what they're being, what they're hearing at home, and what they're walking through, or what their parents are going through, etc. And so that's probably, yeah, kind of clearly unpacking this real time as this has come up. One of the biggest things that I've noticed a shift in myself is how I have shifted from teaching very much about like budgeting and how to hold on to your money as tightly as possible from that place of scarcity. And like passing that on to the kids, because A, that's the curriculum, but B, that also was my mindset and my outlook, and my like, oh, well, if this is how you win, this is how you get ahead. You're ruthless. You hold on to it as tightly as possible. You budget like crazy. You say no to anything fun, etc., etc. Instead of coming at it from a place of abundance and like that open-fistedness, and being able to say, how can I be a wise steward of my finances, and how can I steward my money well and use it as a tool in my life, and those shifts. And so even though the curriculum hasn't shifted a lot, I mean, my words and my interpretation and just my outlook on things has definitely shifted how I present and how I teach. And I think it's really, really interesting and impactful. And I guess like I'm so thankful for the shifts that I've done on this journey and continue to make for myself. And I think teaching those things for the kids, like there's been classrooms where I see kids that, you can tell that I love asking questions. And so it's always interesting to me to see the kids ask, like if I ask, okay, who likes money, right? And almost all the kids put up their hands.
and depending on the class, and then I ask who likes, saving money, who likes spending money, and it's really interesting. And then one of my favorite questions is, do you think that we can buy everything we want the second we want it? And the kids are like, no, of course, right? Because they've been, that's been drilled into them. But then I ask, do you think millionaires can buy everything they want the second they want it? Or billionaires? And just to get the kids thinking, and it's interesting to see their responses, because most of the classrooms, they're like, yes. And then I'm like, well, but no, right? And some of the kids are like, well, I don't think so, but also yes, right? And so that's a super fun question and discussion I love having with the kids of no, if you're being a wise steward of your money, and how millionaires, continue to be millionaires, is because they aren't buying everything they want the second they want it, right? They're being wise stewards of their money. And so that, those are really fun questions and things, I guess, that along the way, as I've grown and shifted again, that comes out now in the presentations. And even though I'm talking about budgeting and the importance of saving your money and, budgets and not spending and those things, and debt and credit cards and all sorts of things, to still be able to say, okay, but now when you steward your money wisely, you can go do fun things with it, right? So that's been a really cool shift. And that scarcity piece. I kind of talked about just the levels of connection, and the grades too. I talked about it in different classrooms, but obviously how I present to the kindergarten kids is very different to how I talk to a grade 11, 12 class of, mostly boys, right? And so being able to find places and areas where you can, they can identify with you, or you can kind of spark that, oh, she's not just, oh, okay, she's not just lame, right? Or whatever. I'm sure, I know lots of the kids have still thought that I'm lame, but I do my best. Anyways, yeah, so I'm excited. I don't know how much longer, or what the future will look like in terms of continuing to do the presentations, but for now, I love them. And so if you're listening to this and you're in Alberta, or someone in Alberta, or you have kids, whether it's a teacher or you have kids, or someone with kids, or a teacher in Alberta, I would love to come into their school, your school, whatever that is, and present to however many classes. And so just reach out, and I'd love to connect. And outside of that as well, this is the company that I do this through is just for Alberta. But personally, I've been asked to, develop things and do things outside of that. And that's something that I'm definitely, have in the works and am open to talking about. So if you have, a need for that, if you see how that would be beneficial and you're someplace else, reach out, and I can point you in the right direction of resources as well, for the time being. So it's been a good 10 years. I can't believe it's been 10 years. That feels, flown by, but also really good. Anyways, so thanks for listening today. If you have any feedback or takeaways from today's episode, I'd love to hear, and we'll see you all again soon.
You just finished another episode of the Rediscover Real podcast. My hope is always that you come away encouraged. And if you found this valuable, would you share it with a friend? And be sure to tag me on social media. I love seeing your takeaways. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And I would so appreciate it if you took a second to rate and review this podcast so that more people can find it. Also, take a peek in the show notes for a link to my website that has a special gift just for you for listening today. As always, I'm on the journey and you're invited. Let's rediscover real together.